Well, hello there, everybody. Welcome. Hello there, prospecting. Hello there, Crystal. How's everybody doing tonight? Let's see, Kyle Smith, Denise. Let's see here. Who else we got in here? Everybody's starting to coming in. How you doing, Chris?
Good. Good evening. Happy Monday.
Yes, happy Monday. And let me click on this. And don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, this edition is brought to you by USCCA. If you are traveling and you don't know your concealed carry laws, make sure and check out the link below in the description or in the chat. Send it to your friends and loved ones and stay abreast on the concealed carry laws across the nation. We are partners with them and we greatly appreciate it. So what we got going on tonight?
What's up? I really enjoyed Justin Decker's show the other night about frequencies and about sound, and wanted to kind of bring him on the show and have a little more discussion and just talk about the topic a little bit more. I think it's a really fascinating subject and definitely needs to be explored more.
All right.
Come
Welcome,
on up.
Justin.
Hey, everybody. Doing all right.
So how you doing, sir? So
It's Monday. What the heck am I doing on a show for Monday, man? This is supposed to be my day off.
I'll be. I tell you what, I'll jump on with you one Thursday for you.
Sounds good. No problem.
So yeah, just I love the topic, and it's fascinating because I really, when people say everything's frequency, I mean, essentially, really, it is. Whether it's sound, whether it's vibration, light, infrasound, infrared. I mean, everything is frequency, no matter what we look at, and or it's just a reflection of something that's frequency. Even all the way down to atoms and everything's vibrating, right? So it's amazing to me. And your topic the other night would definitely, struck a chord, and I was just exploring some of it. I don't know how many of our listeners have heard of Chladni plates, and just wanted to show some stuff that's pretty cool. And these are just reactions of, and this is an old, I mean, the guy was the Ernest Chladni, had been doing studies on this stuff since the early 1800s. And so it's definitely not new, and a lot of people have probably seen it, but it's pretty cool because there's a lot of videos on YouTube that has some really neat stuff in regards to it and showing demonstrations on it. So I wanted to pull a few of those up and share a screen here. So example, I'm just going to skip through some of the cool parts. So that I didn't share sound. So some of these are like really high pitched. They're not entertaining sounds, but they'll kick it on and then you'll see everything start vibrating and start forming patterns. And it's interesting that the patterns get more elaborate as the frequencies get higher and higher, which I didn't realize that until I started looking into this, but you can see that pattern, and then they can pour more on it and it maintains the same pattern, which is pretty interesting. So in this particular video,
basically what they're doing, it's a plate, a metal plate getting vibrated by sound waves.
Yeah, and they're changing the tone throughout this video.
Right. So essentially that metal plate is acting like our eardrum would, and it's picking up the vibrations from the sound and transferring it to the grains of sand there.
And just you see the patterns develop. That's really amazing. Some are quite beautiful. What I've also learned, depending on the material, the thickness of the material, even down to the camera that's recording it, will be how well the patterns show or display and the frequency. So it resonates at different frequencies. So certain materials might resonate better at a certain frequency, if that makes sense. So that's one example. This was
And
it's very, very, very interesting. The quote: "If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think of the terms of energy, frequency, and vibration" by Nikola Tesla.
absolutely.
And that's can't be more true, I don't think. And this one was same thing. It's the same plate. You can see the speakers underneath, the plates on top. There's some different variations. This one just made by a different person. Start off at 100 hertz. Yeah. The higher the tone, the more complex. It's amazing how fast it forms.
Absolutely.
That's 1033 hertz. And you can turn it off, turn it back on. It's going to create the same pattern for that same frequency every time. That's pretty neat. I don't know what you think about that, but look how detailed these are.
See, and we're getting into ranges now that are ultrasonic where we couldn't even pick them up at the human level.
4029 hertz. Nobody goes up to here.
And what's fascinating too, so there's a science with this. It's called cymatics or cymatics, depending on how you pronounce it, where you're from. CYMATICS, cymatics. And they study this, and this is what they do. They study the relation between these frequencies and the patterns they develop. And what I find interesting is they're all symmetrical as well.
Yeah.
You're not finding any asymmetrical patterns in there.
No, they are very symmetrical.
Mm-hmm.
This is a guy that's doing this kind of as an art, and he almost rubs the edge of the table, similar to a Tibetan bowl. And you can't hear it here. Of course, I didn't turn it on, but it starts bouncing in and creates a pattern. Skip ahead. And he changes the different tones with different thickness tool, whatever he's using.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty neat.
Yeah, that's fascinating. He's producing it themselves, so he's just kind of basically he's an artist. He's being artistic with it and changing the notes using different materials and different vibrations and creating his own patterns with it.
And this one, they got a little more technical with it. I want to say, I thought this was a little creepy because right there it looks like a skull.
Yeah.
Like, what frequency was that that created that, right?
Well, and I was going to ask if you came across any of them showing multiple tones at once, but it looks like that's what he was doing there with the keyboard.
Yeah, that's maybe it was. I didn't get into listen to them all super close, but he does have a keyboard set up. If you go back here, I mean, they were doing some of the stuff for a video, like a music video, and they were just playing around with it. But yeah, it'd be interesting, like different chords, maybe different tones. It's simultaneously how that would change it. But.
Whether they were harmonic or dissonant, and see what happens. You know, it reminds me of that scene from Sherlock Holmes. Was it where he captured all the moths in the globe of his candle, and he was playing the violin? You guys remember that? And he was playing harmonic clusters, and they were flying in a counterclockwise circle, but they were all flying the same direction in a pattern. And then when he went to a dissonant chord, they all went into chaos mode and were just kind of flying all over the place. I know that's a movie. I know that wasn't real, but the premise, the idea is still there as scientifically sound.
So the same folks that created that last video went ahead and created one with liquids, which pretty cool
Oh,
because it
nice.
almost is the same concept.
Yeah. Well, it would be.
And
It's the physical interpretation of sound waves.
So they used frozen vodka because they found that the best results were the thicker liquid.
Hey,
So
I get better results from frozen vodka too. I'm not gonna lie.
yeah, there's something about it, right? Plus, they had a little party afterwards, I'm sure. And they were also
so cool.
Yeah, they're also discussing the frame rates on the camera would also impact on how well it came up and how it almost looked like it's crystallized. Jump ahead here. That looked like a different liquid. Yeah, that's a lot of different frequencies. You can see how much that speaker's responding. Well, that's just a single frequency. You definitely tell the deeper ones. Like it's a deeper wave. That's cool. Till they're having fun with that one. Also, same guys decided to take the experiments a little further, and they taped a water hose to a speaker. And you can see him playing the kick drum in the back. And this literally turns into a spiral instead of just a straight stream or a wave. It's literally a spiral.
Now that's an interesting twist on it.
See how it goes round and round. It's crazy. And also, again, the frame rates of the camera have a lot of effect, especially on this particular one. There's a point where it looks like the water is being sucked back up into the tube when it hits just the right frame rate.
Well, that's kind of like when you see a car traveling and the wheels look like they're spinning backwards.
They're like, this isn't the best idea. We're hooking up water and electricity here. But yeah, they're playing different frequencies here. Now that looks like it's going back into the tube. And that has, I guess, the perfect, and that is same as that. Pretty cool stuff. This guy was doing it with flames. And he's just sending like a signal through. It's not a real pretty signal, but it gets the flames to react.
That's interesting. I've never seen that one before.
Pretty wild, right?
Yeah, that one is.
He doesn't do too much more at the end. He has a little bit. He talks about setting it up a lot. Very cool.
I wonder how that specifically works.
He's got gas going through there, but yeah, that's
right. But is it like the sound waves are increasing the pressure of the gas coming through the holes? Are they affecting the holes themselves?
I think it's the whole tube.
Like, what's the mechanism there?
I think he's running it through the whole tube, so it must be drawing air in and out differently, so it's burning differently. I would assume, but I don't know. Here's another cool one: levitating stones.
Yep,
with sound. I don't think that one worked too well. It pops up, but that's a lot of weight.
I've seen this done with like ping pong balls and stuff for for effect. But I mean, that's a little more dramatic when you can float stones like that, huh?
Look at that. He did pick it up. Wow.
Well, and if you guys remember talking last week about the Coral Castle
Mm-hmm.
and being able to move, tons and tons of rocks, I mean, what we're witnessing right there is on a smaller scale, the exact same thing.
Now, what do you think the chances that UAPs, UFOs are essentially some kind of barrier from gravity using frequencies?
I think it's highly possible. I think it's more than likely, to be honest with you. I'm of the belief, I believe in ancient tech and the fact that antediluvian societies were highly advanced. But I believe their tech was based on an understanding of vibrational frequencies and sound frequency and different things like that and how they interacted. And I believe that tech was lost and we regained technology on the path that we are today. And I think that there may have been some people, like you had that quote from Tesla earlier, that were actually going in that other direction of vibrations and frequencies and how they could be harnessed and used. And I think that's one of the reasons why the government came in and took his tech. If anybody has researched Tesla at all after he died,
Yeah, it was
the
confiscated.
government came in and confiscated like 99% of his information. And so having something like that, I mean, it just makes sense because, we were talking last show how we have seen where sound waves can bend light waves and so it can change how we perceive things. And one of the big things behind UAPs or UFOs or whatever you feel like calling them now, is that we're not necessarily seeing what's really happening to whatever it is. Like, let's say if it's a vehicle, we might perceive it as moving at right angles, 90-degree angles, where we couldn't normally do that with a craft. But the idea is they're not really moving that way. It just appears to be moving that way to us based on their propulsion systems. So, I mean, there's a lot of theory involved in there, but it all could make sense if they're using the idea of harmonics and vibrations and frequencies as part of their system,
Yeah. Well, it makes a lot of sense, I think, in an aspect where they move effortlessly with no noise, no propulsion, no anything is what we hear, just zipping through something. So if you got a technology that negates gravity 100%, it'd be
Well,
just like
if you
sliding
follow,
through with no resistance, right?
right, if you follow the Bob Lazar stories and the way he explains the tech, all they're really doing is creating a field in front of them where the gravity is less. So essentially, it's in a perpetual falling motion, which allows it to propel itself forward. But it uses particular elements in a particular system that creates this field, which a field is basically a specific vibrational frequency around something, just like a magnetic field or an EMF field, as we all hear about when it comes to paranormal research, or an acoustic field around something like we just witnessed on those plates. It's all vibration, it's all frequency. It just matters what is doing the vibrating and how we can control it and what effects it has is what it boils down to.
Yeah, we control it like an example here for those people that don't believe in infrasound. This is a good example of what our own military has developed, and this is for crowd control. They call it an active denial system, non-lethal weapon, and they get blasted, and it looks fake, like they're running off, but they show a couple examples of other people getting, standing and testing, and you get hit by it, and you want no part of it. You're just like, all right, I'm done.
Well, I mean, for people that have ever gone to a big rock concert and ended up right in front of the big bass speakers, you know the feeling.
Mm-hmm. But
And
this
most
is
people aren't
amplified
comfortable
even
sitting
more.
there very long. I have
So,
a good friend of mine who's military, and he confirmed with me that over in the Middle East, they were using not just weapons like that, like these big massive ones, but smaller handheld ones for target directed use, where they could, pick out a specific person and target them with those kind of rays.
oh yeah,
And he confirmed, like he could go into so much detail because he's military, very proud military, and I thank him for his service whenever I see him, and so he is very much still believes in the secrecy and in the oaths that he upheld, and I absolutely respect that with him. But he was definitely like, we have those kinds of weapons and we've had them for decades. It's not necessarily a new thing.
I'm sure
And
that the one
I'll
I just showed, it was actually more of a rough, old school type of
oh
one as
yeah.
they're demonstrating. That's not even newer technology on that
Mm-hmm.
one.
Well, it's like I say, military tech is anywhere from 50 to 200 years beyond what they're actually showing us and what's field tested. So what they're working on and what they are capable of is far beyond what we're aware of. And that's not just the conspiracy theory part of me. That's the way it works. They were using drones far before the American public knew they were using drones, and that's a fact.
Yeah. What do you think about 0 point energy and any
Um,
relation to do with the frequencies? And
I think so. I really think that ultimately that's what it's about. There's a theory out there that talks about the Great Pyramids. Regardless of what people tell you, the Great Pyramids, the three at Giza, they're a huge mystery. People have no real clue as to why they were built. Those three pyramids are not tombs. They were never tombs. They were
yeah,
giant chambers and all this. And there's a theory out there
energy.
that they were giant resonating chambers. And what they would do is down certain of the chutes that they have found that lead directly to the outside, they would pour specific chemicals and they would all meet in like a mixing chamber and create a reaction that would create a specific frequency that would go up through and vibrate up through the top. And they found bracings or almost like rafters within them, and the tops of them were chiseled away like in grooves along the top. And the idea is the grooves were tuning them to vibrate at a specific frequency, just like the grooves on like a guitar string or a piano string. They help make it vibrate at the right frequency. And then they said the cap of the pyramid was pure gold, which, as we know, is a huge conductor. And the theory is basically these things were giant power generators. And all they would have to do is put these specific chemicals together in these chambers, and it would create these massive atomic level energy, and it would just shoot up into the atmosphere, and then people could access it as free energy. Now,
Yeah, this.
is that the
Yeah,
truth? I don't know. I wasn't there. I didn't see it. But I think it's a fascinating theory, you know?
yeah. They say a
Um,
lot of the tombs are found actually when they do show tombs that are being exhumed and mummies or whatever. They're off to the
yeah.
side. They're buried
Mhm.
around in locations not in the pyramid, but around the pyramid
Yeah.
and underground.
Well,
And they're still
have you ever heard of the
excavating some of
Valley of the
those.
Kings?
No.
The Valley of the Kings is where they found most of the pharaohs, including King Tut. And it wasn't in a pyramid. It was in a big crevasse, basically a holler, where they buried all these guys in the cliffside. It had nothing to do with pyramids.
Really? Yeah,
Hey,
that's
Grizz, can you go back up to what Penny was asking I want to read that. We can discuss that. I think that's a very interesting point.
Are you on your phone or laptop?
This one?
Oh, I suppose I could do it. Yeah, there you go. Penny Van said, Justin, I've always wondered if targeted sound waves are being used to create crop circles. I think that is an interesting thought. I've never actually thought about that.
That
What do
is
you think, Chris?
Very good. Yeah, it's a possibility. It's not going to be in the same, same scenario. Maybe it's targeted, but I don't think it's going to be the same as just a sound pattern going out, kind of like the Chilean plates always seem to be symmetrical, where a lot of the, crop circles are not. But it's a very good thought, to be honest with you. I mean, it could be blasted from above.
Did you ever hear, you know what the Tunguska blast is, Chris? Basically, it was a huge explosion in Siberia, in the Tunguska area. And it's one of those mystery things. UFO people say it is a UFO crash like Roswell. Some people say it was early nuclear testing. I came across this theory that fits right in with us, where it was actually Tesla and his death rays and earth waves, and he found a way to basically produce a wave through the earth. And the story, and again, I don't know if it's real. I just know this is the theory and the story behind it. Who was it? The Tesla's big financier guy, JP Morgan, I think it was, they said, was pulling financing.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was trying to prove that he still needed to be financed. And so he conducted this experiment, and he was supposed to be hitting a specific target. And I can't remember off the top of my head what the target was, somewhere in Russia. And he overshot it. And he ended up blowing a hole in the earth out there in Tunguska, and they call it the Tunguska blast. But it's the same thing, where it's using waves and frequency through the earth, using earth energy. And again, I don't know if it's true or not, but if it is, it's another piece that fits into this idea of frequencies and harmonics and everything,
Don't underestimate the Tesla coils.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, something definitely works.
I don't think
a lot of people are talking about crop circles. Kyle Smith, I've heard around spheres like Oars, Leanna King. I thought that was how ETs did crop circles, either through frequencies or different sound patterns. We just don't know. There's been a lot of interesting stuff on crop circles over the years. I remember when the two old guys came out and said they were the one making the crop circles. You remember that?
Mm-hmm. Laying them down. But see, there's a difference between the ones that are actually done manually and the ones that are not.
Sure.
There's proof. They're laid down differently. They're damaged differently.
And if you look at the frequency and the locations, it's not even possible those guys could have done them all.
No. And beyond that, the complete how perfectly symmetrical in the way that they're made, geographic and the geometry to it is would not be possible to do it from the ground.
No,
there's no way.
I can't even use my lawnmower in a straight line, let alone try and do something like that.
Exactly. I agree with that one 100%.
So Sydney's asking, what do y'all think about or know about sonar weapons from the Navy?
I don't know if I've actually heard them, but
really.
Sonar is specific types of waves they use for locating things, for bouncing back. So I don't know if sonar would be the right word for it, but if we're talking sonic weapons or subsonic weapons or ultrasonic weapons, that's what we were just talking about. And they would be just as effective underwater as above water. They just have to be adjusted,
if not more.
I know a lot of people see these beachings that happen where a whole pod of whales or dolphins or a specific species of fish will all die in an area at one time. A lot of them blame underwater sonar testing or subsonic sound wave testing in the oceans for that. And I think that's feasible. That's a possible idea.
Well, they say less than 5% of our oceans has been investigated or explored. So that's
Go
not
take a
much.
cruise. You take one cruise and you realize how big the actual ocean is. You're like, it's just insane. You feel pretty minute in this world when you start exploring it. You know what I mean? It's crazy.
Absolutely.
Liana asked, wasn't there news a while back about infrasound for a submarine that beached a bunch of whales?
Mm-hmm.
It's possible. I didn't hear about it, but
yeah,
I wouldn't doubt it. Wouldn't doubt it.
Yep, that's exactly what they're talking about. Same thing. But I mean, if they are testing out some kind of weapon, they're definitely not going to come out and tell us it was a weapon, right? But if you have a whole pot of beached whales and people are asking the government, they got to come up with some kind of an answer, right? They can't just be like, "Well, we don't know." That wouldn't be very kosher.
Yeah, they know a lot more than what they led on to. Just like you said, somebody made a comment that it's like dog years what the government knows versus what we know or the technologies that are released. I think it's probably even worse than dog years, if you ask me. It's a huge multiplier. They don't release a lot of it.
I think it depends on exactly what tech we're talking about, depending on how far, they're at.
I want to pull something up.
Norma says, honestly, they are hiding info on our oceans because they have submarines that travel under the continents. I've heard this brought up a couple times, and I'm going to have to dig into it a little bit.
Yeah, I actually brought that up on one of the shows, if you remember.
Yep. And I haven't dug into it yet, but it's on my list. I think it's a fascinating idea because it would really fly into a face of a lot of theories. Like, if we start talking tectonic plate theory and all this kind of stuff, and there's a lot of not necessarily a lot, there's many scientists out there that don't really go with the tectonic plate theory, which is basically the Earth's crust is different plates and they crash and collide and slide past each other, and that's what causes the earthquakes and the mountains and this and that. And some people don't really hold into that theory. They think there's something else, at work there. Because they're like, we don't believe the Earth is just a bunch of lily pads floating around on the surface of something, which is essentially what plate tectonic theory states. And so if there was a way to literally go under the U.S. or any continent completely, underwater, submarine, marine, specifically stating saltwater, I think that would be absolutely fascinating. And I could see why a government or a military complex would want to keep that ability a secret. Being able to transport stuff like that, I mean, that would be absolutely amazing. And how fast they could move stuff, you know what I mean?
Well,
and
military personnel actually came forward and said it does. They have a nuclear mechanical place to work on the nuclear submarines. I forgot what state. Was it Utah or Nevada or something? I can't remember
some
the state.
desert state.
Right. So.
They like the desert. It's a lot of peace and quiet out there for them. That's for sure. I mean, you ever watch Dutch Sense? Before he
watch what?
Dutch Sense. I think he might have shut his YouTube down. He was a guy that followed the earthquakes around the world. He would come up and he literally could even predict the earthquakes based on if you have a 5.5 here and you follow it down the actual tectonic plates and which direction they're heading. He could say, all right, we should expect one here, because he would follow them that much. He'd seen it so many times, and he actually successfully did it to the degree where the government told him to stop. Don't know why, but they basically shut him down and said, cut it out. He was a little bit of a conspiracy theorist as well, but not saying that there isn't other things that we don't know, but I do believe that the plates exist, and the fact that he was kind of proving it. I mean, he's following the fault lines all around the world and showing each one of the major earthquakes and how they flow from one to the next. So it's funny thing is, it almost wasn't like they would get weaker and weaker. They would maintain the strength. So if you got a 7.6 here, you can expect to see another 7.6 down the line, which I thought was kind of interesting. It's like maybe a wave underneath.
Right.
Plates.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
right. And then maybe the points where we're registering them and it comes up like that would be like the crest of the wave. Right.
correct.
So remember, we're measuring wavelength, guys, as the crest to the crest. Maybe the crest point is where they're measuring it on the Richter scale, and all the other parts are so low beneath that they can't measure them. There's an interesting thought.
Yeah, I mean, those frequencies are pretty low, I'm sure. Even the frequencies that the Earth itself puts out in general.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, once you get so low, how do you even record it?
Yeah, exactly, because even the sensors can only sense so much. The audio said Dutch would also locate places where we're doing tracking and stuff and associated with the quakes. So I never into them. I always find that fascinating. I'm never a big fan of earthquakes. To me, it was just kind of like, whatever. This is an earthquake.
Yeah.
Growing up in Colombia in the mountains and stuff, like we lived in the jungle, but we also spent some time up in the Andes Mountains, which are right there. And earthquakes were not an uncommon thing for us to feel. We had active volcanoes in those mountains and stuff like that. So it was just kind of, not an everyday occurrence by any means, but it wasn't so unusual that it freaked us out all the time.
The ones that freak you out are the ones by Florida. We had one, what was it, a few weeks back that hit off the coast of Florida? It was a little bit north of the Bahamas.
Yep.
I'm like, what's going on with that? Because there's no tectonic plate there.
No, and that's one of the evidences that the people that don't necessarily believe in tectonic plate theory use is just that, it doesn't line up quite as good as it should, kind of a thing. I don't know.
Is somebody just blowing something up underwater?
Yeah. Geology's not really my thing.
He did have some cool stuff, though, and he even had a video because he paid attention a lot of just stuff, not just earthquakes, but he had one where the Quebec fires, remember when they all kind of went crazy and it was blowing? Yeah, he literally showed and had a YouTube on it where they all popped up like simultaneously.
Was that him? Okay, I did see that video and I found that one very interesting. But my big thing was, like, how real was that video? You know what I mean? Like, if it was real, there's definitely something to it, because you're not going to get that many fires over that spread of an area all lighting at once, like the video showed. It was literally,
I believe it happened during one of his live shows. Like, he was just going through and he's like, hey, look at this. And it was literally while it was going on. So it was one of those situations. He's had that happen for a few different things. He's even had HARP or weird cloud formations form, or even on radars where it's showing rain and all of a sudden all the rain just changes into like a weird pattern, and have it happen while he's live, and actually have it happen while he's live where they scrub the radar and make all the radar go away.
Speaking of which, I remember Hurricane Charlie down here in Florida. I was still living here for that. And back then I was into the idea of that large storms like hurricanes are not a convection mechanism like they say they are. They're an electronic mechanism that makes them work based on electricity and all this kind of stuff. And watching a radar of the hurricane move, and all of a sudden you saw like a beam come across the radar. And then, like, it's hard to explain because you had the weather hurricane and it was going like this. And then right up across this angle, this beam just kind of shot down and then it disappeared again. And that was it. And they immediately switched the radar off and went back to the guy talking the moment that happened. And I was like, what was that? That's wild. That's crazy. You can't explain that to me by just, oh no, that was just an anomaly. That really didn't happen. That was just an artifact.
A glitch in the radar.
I saw that happen. And the thought behind that theory is the fact that they can basically shoot an electronic beam of some sort and create the path they want the hurricane to follow. Right. So it's kind of like if you got a puddle of water in the sand and you just kind of take your finger and you draw a line, that's the direction you want the water to go. Kind of the same concept of being able to direct it that way based on the fact that it's an electrical system. Because right now, current science teaches that they're a convection system, and it has to do with hot water or hot air and cold water and creating a cycle of evaporation that basically fuels the hurricane. That's why when hurricanes get over warm water, they tend to ramp up, right? That's what they're talking about because it's a convection based system. But the theory behind this is that no, it's actually more electronically induced and has more to do with the electrons of the air and lightning and all this kind of stuff. And I
Well,
thought that was just
it is like a spinning top, though, so it probably would be easier, or not, I wouldn't say easy, but I mean, if they had the technology to
feasible.
manipulate it, yeah, I could see that happening.
Yep, exactly. Why not? I mean, if you remember Hurricane Charlie, it was on path to hit north of Tampa. And then at the very last minute, it literally turned into Charlotte Harbor, which is actually where I was living at the time. The hurricane made landfall 2 miles from where I was living. But the reason it was so devastating, is because we weren't evacuating down here because it was supposed to go farther north than us. And we weren't, it was supposed to head up through Orlando, if I remember correctly. And so us down here, we were just kind of like, yeah, whatever, we're good.
We're expecting in Tampa because even the Tampa meteorologist the night before, I guarantee we're gonna literally said, I guarantee we're gonna have hurricane force winds in Tampa by this time tomorrow. And lo and behold, it took a hard right. We didn't get anything. He looked like
took us
stood
out
there with a bunch of egg in his face. Hell, that last hurricane did the same thing to him.
Yeah. When Ian came through, it was kind of the same thing down here.
Somebody audio had a interesting comment here. He said anomalies when they talking about CERN. What about weather patterns over CERN? I haven't heard about that before, but I wouldn't be surprised when they amp up the power of the CERN and how much energy that's probably drawing and taking.
I think the problem is there's so much urban legend and lore and build up around CERN and the Hadron Colliders and all this kind of stuff that it would be very, very difficult to differentiate the crap from the reality of what's happening. You know what I mean? Because I mean, Oak Ridge, Tennessee, which isn't too far from where I'm living up here in Tennessee. They have a Hadron Collider up there. But what's really interesting, and the conspiracy theorists love it, is the fact that Oak Ridge was one of the plant areas where they were developing nuclear weapons. That was one of the big producers up there to actually manufacturing the atomic bombs and stuff. And the idea is they turned from producing nuclear weapons to studying nuclear physics and quantum physics using the same facilities and same tech. And supposedly they're opening up all kinds of portals around Oak Ridge, and that's where a lot of the strange phenomenon is happening because of the same thing. So people think of CERN, not in a foreign country over there, but not realizing we have our own colliders right here in the U.S. and they're doing the same experiments. And those experiments,
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, they're the ones that are studying the quantum mechanics, the quantum physics in the atoms, like we were talking about on the last show about how all the vibrations start because of how the electrons rotate around the protons. And that's the basis of all vibration and frequency, is that phenomenon. And the mechanics that govern that is what quantum mechanics is. And that's how they study it, is using those types of technologies. They collide these atoms together and see what happens. So that's literally what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, and weird. Oddly enough, that the quantum physics and in theories and string theories and all that don't add up to the standard physics that we know. So that everything on a grand scale does not work on a low end scale, and vice versa.
Exactly.
So
It's all
they're still trying to
relative to
find.
scale.
So they're still trying to figure out which rule applies where and what one's wrong, what one's right. But they've already proven some to not be real or right. So
Exactly.
what do we really know in the end? So that's the question, right?
Mm-hmm. Deniska's asking, do we think frequencies create the northern lights? Well, I mean, kind of, yeah, because what you're seeing is the
Magnetic.
sun rays, which is frequency, right? Which is energy, and all energy is this frequency anyway, and it's basically bouncing off the outer ionosphere
waves,
of the earth, right? And so if you think about it, like, have you ever done the experiment where you have the magnet and you put the metal shavings around it and it creates a round field? That's essentially what we have in the earth, and all the spheres are that magnetic field around the earth. And so when you're bombarding it with gamma rays and radiation rays and they bounce off, they're creating that light, which is what the northern lights are, supposedly.
And that's where the magnetic fields actually come back into Earth. So they're kind of more vertical to the Earth than they are horizontal, where they are most of the rest of the Earth, as it's known, at least.
Yeah.
Did you guys? And you're a little more down that way, but I know you're not in Cape Coral. Did you see that news thing that they had about the lasers show up?
I'm not that far from Cape Coral, but no, I don't. I didn't hear anything about that.
I don't know if I can get this to show on.
I'm not very far from Cape Coral at all. Penny Van, auroras, which is northern lights, occur when the charged particles launched along the Earth's magnetic field collide with gases in Earth's upper atmosphere. Yep.
All right, so there was...
And the government denied it for a while.
What's that?
Green lasers.
The green lasers.
I don't know if I got it sounded or not. Probably not.
Kyle Smith, I'm from East Tennessee area as well right now. I shouldn't say from, but that's where I've chosen to call home. Just the Gatlinburg area. So I know East Tennessee, Knoxville.
Can you guys hear that or no?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Welcome back. I'm Chris Safati.
And I'm Lois Tomey. So what does this plane, what is it doing? Awake News anchor Annette Montgomery joins us in the studio. And Annette, what did you learn?
Well, Chris and Lois, I learned who it's not after reaching out to everyone from the city of Cape Coral to the county to the Florida Division of Emergency Management to the South Florida Water District and Port Authority. Now, these low-flying planes with green lasers does not belong to them. One neighbor got so fed up, she purchased a flight radar to help narrow down the search for the owner. It's not something you see every day.
Oh, geez, it was, it went back and forth. At least, I would say 40 minutes to an hour.
But for people living in Cape Coral, they've been seeing it a lot this week.
It was really late at night. It was kind of around midnight. It was around midnight. I was actually in my car. I was just getting home, and I saw it going back and forth with a laser beam, and it scanned over me multiple times, and it was just moving. It was scanning the whole area, every square footage, basically, going just forth.
That low-flying plane was in Casey Sutton's neighborhood for hours Sunday night. Philip Bertolio saw it the same day, but a few hours earlier while watching the Super Bowl game.
Wow, you could see a scan across the ground right there, huh?
Yeah.
That looks like some kind of map. Yeah, audio. I'm with you. Audio says mapping. That does look like some kind
they
of
came out
technology.
and said they were mapping the area. Yeah, after people.
What's that remind you of?
Called in.
Do you remember any of the green lasers showing up over Hawaii? There were people that recorded some prior to all those fires that happened.
Oh, we gotta
which
be
people
then.
thought that might be mapping too before all that happened. So if Cape Coral ends up under fire, we'll know something's up for sure.
We'll keep
Better have a blue roof. Better have a blue roof. That's all I can say.
Right. Let's go paint them blue real quick. Keep us safe.
Put a tarp up.
Well, since we're wrapping up, I got a rabbit hole for you guys. Did y'all hear about Siberia? That big hole in the ground that they dug out for the gravel pits, and what they found?
Is that another Hell's Hole kind of a thing?
So they found, and the country's in turmoil. They don't know what to do. They're trying to keep it quiet, but people leaked it out. I forgot how many feet down. It's really, really deep. I mean, it's incredible depth. And they found a statue of an angel, and it is probably the most realistic statue of an angel that anybody's ever seen. They don't know how it got buried. They don't know how old it is and why it's down this far. And it's freaked everybody out. A lot of people won't dig anymore. So they're trying to hush it up.
Which form of an angel?
That I don't know. Because you say forms, you may say with wings or without wings.
Or the seraphim
or
that
bad?
have the 4 faces, and or the ones that have 1,000 eyes, or there's different descriptions for angelic
it is
beings.
very tight-lipped. It's something we need to look into.
Knowing that not all angels are good.
So
actually, quite a few aren't. That's interesting. There's your rabbit hole for Thursday there, Mr. Justin.
We could do that.
You're looking for one.
I'm looking for a rabbit hole. I can do some tying in because yeah.
But the depth, I can't remember the footage. I mean, it's like, I don't know how it got down that far.
Siberia's cold too.
So
it's like cold year round.
And they don't know how old it is or anything. It's like it was alive and it just like froze in time. It's what they say.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, Penny Van, you're exactly right. Nowhere in the Bible does it state angels actually have wings. And how can there be an accurate depiction of an angel? No one knows what they look like, and they can take any form. Now, I haven't heard that angels can take any form. I don't think that's specifically biblically based. And we do have some descriptions of angelic beings actually in the Bible. But definitely not, that's what I'm saying. Like, we don't know. When they say it looks like an angel, are we talking Catholic angel with the wings and the robes? Or what are we talking about? And that would give us a lot of information right there. It really would.
I don't know. Something to look into.
And what does giant mean? Are we talking monolithic giant, or are we talking,
They said when a human stood next to it, the knees were, I think, at the head.
Okay.
That's the statue was that big?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they never seen detail on a statue like this. So I don't know. It's got everybody tore up over there.
Already then.
Fascinating. I'll have to dig that up and see what we can find on it. Absolutely. Penny Van.
It's
giant
just
to me is anything over 4 foot tall. I'm a hobbit.
But why would something be buried that many feet down? That's my question.
That's highly unusual.
So, yeah.
Might be pre-flood.
And I'd be interested if it was buried, if it was in a subterranean cave kind of a thing. Like, there's so many questions in there.
Well, there you go.
Was it under a glacier?
Scott
seems to know about it.
I had sword and armor. I wasn't remembering if that was accurate. That's why I didn't say it. So
sure,
I didn't want to mislead people. But yeah, so it is out there in the mainstream.
We'll check it
Well,
out, and because it's me, I'll tie it in with some other stuff, and we'll throw a few different theories out there. And
he said, "Google
we'll
it."
get
How you
into some
found it.
biblical stuff, and we'll figure this out. Well, we won't figure it out. We'll just talk about it. We'll go down the rabbit hole.
That sounds like a good show. And then for next Monday, I've got Standing Stones coming on as a guest, and we're going to do a little talking about some monolithic, some pyramids and other structures throughout the world that are very hard to explain, and we'll kind of dive into that a little bit. If you want me to join you Thursday
in Japan.
Which one?
There's in Japan, they have some monolithic structures that they can't explain at all. So that'd be a good one for you guys to look into.
Nice. I'll take that little bone and go with it. I'll look it up for sure. And if you have a space on Thursday, I'll join you.
Sure. Always welcome on the show. It's nice to have different viewpoints and different thoughts and ideas on some of this stuff, because it gets hard because most of these theories are put forth by only one or two people. And there's not a lot of solid critiquing on them, and there's not a lot of other viewpoints to go with them, so it's important to have other perspectives on things. I think that's definitely an important thing to have.
Absolutely.
All right, ladies and gentlemen.
Justin, I appreciate it. Thank you
very much. And from coast to coast, around the world. Good night, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.
Good night.
Bye-bye.